All right, and we got it recorded. Okay, we got it started. All right, so let me go ahead and just kind of show where we were. Let's see here. Oh, first I got to share. I haven't shared yet, right? Hang on. Give me a second. I'm not sharing yet, am I?
No, not yet, Ketan.
All right, let's see where it happened. There we go. Okay, now I should be sharing. All right, and then looks like we got a few others that have joined, so thank you for joining. Srinivas, thank you, sir. And let's see, Venkat, I got you, and then I think we got everybody else. Okay, great. All right, so let's kind of catch up on where we were last week. I'm going to try to just do a quick recap of what we discussed. So that way, and then once you guys have the presentation, that will hopefully help a lot more on some of the discussion points and so forth. All right, you guys should see the presentation here. So we kind of talked about doing the introduction to your client. Well, let's go through here, right? The first contact, right? When you first meet your clients, kind of understand the property, identify the property, right? Make sure that you know that the owners of the sellers that are selling are truly the owners of the property. That's the most important thing. Remember, the next step is to go visit the property, get some details from the owners as far as any updates they've done and so forth. But the reason you want to visit, and before you actually visit, run your CMAs. Look at the properties in the neighborhood and look at the pictures. See which ones have been updated, which ones have not. And, you know, if one's at 160 a square foot and the other one's at 140 a square foot and one's been updated, then you know exactly where updated homes are. And always make sure that you know where the price per square footage is, you know, irrespective of the updates and so forth. Okay, so understanding your CMA is going to be extremely important. And I'm right now just kind of going through the summary of what we discussed last week. When you get the presentation, you're also going to get the CMA guide, which is the, we have a version on YouTube that you can kind of just, it's a video. Now, actually, this one right here is the, if you see that, the CMA guide, that's actually on Netris. But then we also have a YouTube video of a CMA that I actually did a few years ago that you are welcome to kind of just go through. We didn't run a CMA only because I think a lot of folks were pretty comfortable last week having run CMAs in the past. So I think that's the, you know, that's something you guys can do. It is something we will run through briefly in the new agent orientation when we do that next week. And then of course, just, you know that you have to send some price suggestions to your clients. You can do that when you meet with them, or you can do it afterwards. After that, so now this is the final engagement with your clients. Details. Very important. Okay, one characteristic of a good real estate agent or a licensee is the fact that they are extremely detail oriented. In real estate, you have to be. There's nothing else to it, which means, and I'll get into this a little bit more in some of the future classes and stuff like that, because we're seeing a lot of just small little errors that we need to kind of correct down the road. Let's see, did we go through this one? Yeah, as far as the, you know, so as far as the listing agreement, right? Keep in mind, the commissions are negotiable, but when you're filling out the total commission on a listing, it is both sides. All right. You know, you can do it for, you know, and keep in mind, because commissions are negotiable, I'm not going to tell you that you can do that. I mean, you know, you have to do it one way or the other way. Typically for our listings, we've been charging 4%. We've been doing it for years. You know, if you think about it, Redfin and some of these other larger companies are just now getting into doing that. Let's see, we talked about step 4, seller's exclusions. All right, so I think this is where we were. Step 4 is seller's exclusions. So let's go ahead and start with that. And now that we have some more participation, I am going to call on you guys. So I hope you don't mind as we go through this. All right, so Venkat, go through and tell me, what would stay in a house and what would not stay in a house. So in other words, and you can just give me a couple of examples, and then let's see if we can kind of figure out if it's going to stay or if it's not going to stay.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead. Like,
Go ahead.
Is it with whom you asked, Ketan? Sorry if I interfered.
I'm sorry.
yeah, there are two Venkats here.
I forgot about that. I am so sorry. Venkat, hang on one second. Venkat Gajala, go ahead, start with you, and then I'll actually ask the other Venkat as well. Sorry about that, Venkat. Venkat. Okay, go ahead. Venkat.
Hey, Ketan. Anything like real property, related to real property, we'll be keeping in a seller's disclosure.
So give me examples of, okay, so I'll give you an example, and then let's start with that way of doing it. So are curtains going to stay?
Anything like it's like from roof to flooring, plumbing, anything.
Okay, what about curtains? Curtains, would they automatically stay, or do you have to exclude them?
I'm not sure. I think like it's automatically. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So yes, because curtains are fixtures, they're attached to the home, right?
Yes.
So they will stay. Let me go back to let's do. I'll reach out to Suresh. So what else would stay? What else would stay? What about a barbecue grill outside that's hooked up to the gas line?
If it hooked up to the gas line, it will stay.
Yes,
It
exactly.
is a
Because
fixture,
it is
right?
now-
Anything have screws attached to the property, I think that will be as a fixture.
Very good. So the reason is because now that fixture is now attached. Now there's an argument that, hey, it's still considered, personal property, but at the end of the day, if it's hooked up, then the buyers may say, hey, you know what? So what would be the best way to make sure that is not? And I'm going to ask somebody else. What would be the best way in your listing to make sure that is not included or not even part of any discussions? So Darshana, I'm going to call on you since you just joined. Welcome, Darshana. And so how would you do it? There's two ways of doing this. Tell me which ways you would do it.
Either I would remove it before I list it, or I put it in the exclusion section.
Perfect. Very good. Yep, that's exactly what you want to do. And so if you look at our listing agreement, the sample
Ketan, one
listing-
question here. Sorry
Yeah,
to
sure.
interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other day we had gone to see the house, and I was explaining the same thing. If it's attached to the wall, it will be considered as a property, and they will leave it. Now they had actually few pieces of furniture which they had anchored to the wall, so that it's for the safety reasons. So how about those?
So give me an example. Give me a context of that. What do you mean by
Like
furniture
they
that
had a big hutch in the dining area,
okay.
and I assume they had younger grandchildren, so they had actually anchored those that hutch to the wall.
So technically that hutch is still considered furniture, and because
Okay.
it's still considered furniture, even though it's anchored on the wall, they can easily unanchor it and take it out. That's a good
Okay.
question though. I would think, yeah, because oh wow, that's a good one. Let me think through that one. I don't want to give you the wrong answer either. I would
I
think
would
because
consider it
it's
furniture too, because it's almost like there's artwork on the wall, but this is a safety feature, right?
yeah.
Because so he doesn't tip over.
Yeah, exactly. And the hooks are there. It's like, yeah, exactly. Because here's the thing, they're going to remove the hooks. They're going to go ahead and fix it. They're going to fix the texture. They're going to fix the paint when they move out. Does that make sense? Darshana?
Yep. Thanks. Yep.
I would say, I'll always go with the easiest way out, which is, you know what, they're going to take that. But again, it's all about that communication. So just ask the sellers, listing agent, say, hey, what is going to happen with that hutch? And then the second question to that, or follow-up question to that, is going to be, hey, are they going to, when they do remove it, if it is going to be removed, then, are they going to fix the roof, right? I mean, sorry, the roof, the walls, basically. at that point? So those are the questions you want to ask. So let's go to the $5,000 chandelier, right? If I have a $5,000 chandelier that, you know, grandma gave me for my wedding gift, right? Bernard, what would I do with that? What is the best way to handle that one?
Either you remove it or just include it exclusion as somebody said before.
Yeah, exactly. But in this case, I would definitely just remove it and put in a $500 chandelier. Does that make sense? Because here's the other thing that it goes back to that due diligence, right? Here's what happens. If you don't remove it, it stays in there. You have it in exclusions on the MLS. What if, you know, by chance, the buyer's agent, when they submit the contract, don't include it in the exclusions, you don't see it, sellers don't catch it. Now what happens? Even though it's in there, the exclusions are on the MLS, it's a list, right? But if it's not on the contract, what's going to happen there, right? So, the one thing and that's always a fear of mine is that, I have these exclusions, I've listed the exclusions, I've put it on the MLS, you've got to do that follow-up and make sure that when you get that contract, whether it's a mental note or, again, that's part of that due diligence, make sure that that chandelier is excluded out, and here's, believe it or not, here's what I tell my sellers nowadays is, in case I forget, please remind me to make sure that that chandelier is excluded. Obviously, I'd rather just it not be there in the first place. The only one, and we'll get out of this in a minute, the only other one that I can think of that's always been a, not necessarily confusing, but, TVs don't stay. We kind of know that. We've kind of figured that out. What about TV mounts? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, if the TV mounts are mounted on the wall, that should stay, that's my understanding.
Yeah, but a lot, they should stay, right? Anybody else think differently? I want to hear somebody who says, no, they should not stay. Does anybody have that thought of, no, the TV mounts should?
I think if the client wants to, the buyer doesn't want the TV mount, then I think we'll have to do certain adjustments and try to take it out and repaint it and, all that stuff.
No, that's a good point. So what if the buyer doesn't want a TV in the kid's bedroom, right? Let's say the previous sellers had a TV in there. They're going to take the TV out, of course, but they're going to leave the TV mount there. How do you handle that? Anybody know? I don't know the answer, so I'm trying to see what you guys might think about this one. Or Rachel, what are your thoughts on this one? Or anybody?
It's cosmetic, so I would just have the buyers do it on their own time.
Yep, just remove it and do their own thing. Yeah, because here's the reason why. The seller is following the context of the contract. That's all they're doing, right? Unless now, here's the one thing you can do is special provisions, or not necessarily in special provisions, but which other section can you ask the sellers to do something when you're submitting the contract? Does anybody remember?
Yeah, there is option that we may ask them. That can be one of the requests.
Bernard, we can barely hear you. Say that one more time.
During the option period, the buyers.
You can. Yeah.
To remove.
But no, you're right. You can do it in option period. You can ask during the amendment phase of it, right? Or repair request or other modifications. Where am I looking for a specific section in a specific paragraph that allows me to ask for something during the contract stage? Anybody think about this one? Does anybody know? Let me call on somebody else. Let's see here. Srinivas, we haven't called on you. So what do you think? What am I looking for? It's one paragraph. It's a paragraph within the contract, and it's within the it's just one paragraph, one section that I'm referring to. Anybody know which one I'm referring to?
Special provision.
Close. You can do it in special provisions, but there's a better way to do this. All right. So what about section 7 of the contract? I don't have it in front of me right now. But what about section 7 of the contract? What is that related to? Does anybody have it up? Tell me what it says. It's related to property condition, right?
As is, As is or something?
Yep. Okay. So as is, and what's the other clause that you can put this information into? Does anybody somebody bring it up real quick?
Yeah, there is a clause where it's, I forgot the section where it says that provided that this is done, like carpet is changed.
Yep,
This
exactly. Yep. There you go. Thanks, Alpha. Yep. And that's exactly what I'm looking for is, so let's say, for example, if you wanted to have if you're the buyer's agent and you wanted to have the TV mounts removed, that is where you're going to put it. Okay. You're going to say seller to remove all TV mounts prior to closing. And I got a chat. So I'm thinking there's somebody's, yep, you got it. Property condition part B. That is exactly correct. All right. So these are certain ways you want to do that. You don't need to use special provisions for that because there's already a paragraph and there's already a section for that. Anytime you want, obviously we don't do it as much in our contracts today, but anytime you want a seller to fulfill something, if the seller had said on the MLS that they're going to replace carpets prior to closing, then hey, might as well add it in there, add it in that section. The paragraph, it's paragraph 7, section B. All right. Let me make sure we covered all of this. Chandelier, removing any fixtures. Keep in mind curtains, blinds, garage door openers, fences, pool equipment, I believe is still part of the exclusions. I mean, it's as part of the fixtures. If you have a outdoor kitchen, then the barbecue grill, if it's stuck in there, is part of it. If you have a smoker that's fitting into that little section where they opened it up to fit it in, that's part of it. What else? Anybody else think of anything else that would be part of your fixtures? We talked about the curtains. We talked about the barbecue grill. And then as a courtesy, always advise your clients. If you're representing the sellers, make sure that, if they decide to take that TV mount and it's already been agreed upon, make sure they patch up those walls and fix it. We had one situation where I was representing the buyers and the listing agent completely forgot to remove I kid you not, a $10,000 TV screen, a movie screen on the wall. Okay. And so she completely forgot to do it. And so we had to renegotiate that a little bit to where, and my buyers at the end of the day didn't really care, but the sellers ended up paying $2,000 on top of it. Plus they ended up fixing the wall, So now we could have made that very, very difficult. And we could have said, you know what, because it's not in there, we're gonna keep it, right? So remember, this could go south in many different ways. So again, it's part of that due diligence that I want to make sure that you guys are familiar with and you follow those rules and stuff like that. All right, before we go on to the a couple of questions. Okay, so yeah, let's start with solar panels. Darshana, I'll get to the solar panels in a minute. Go ahead, Suresh, go ahead.
What about the security systems connected, like cameras connected to the?
No, so cameras. Oh gosh, I don't know, and so I'm going to look for you guys to help me out on this one. I'm trying to remember what the answer is for cameras. I should know that. Does anybody have an idea?
It's included.
It's included, yeah.
Does anybody have? Is somebody in front of the contract that they can tell me what it says?
I
about
think
the
in the new
cameras?
contract, Ketan, I think it's specifically called out the security device and solar panels and all that. If I'm not mistaken.
I know. Solar panels are specifically called out. Now, that's another thing I do want to talk about is the solar panels, because I think you guys need to know about
security
that.
devices too.
Yeah, unless excluded from the seller, they're supposed to be headed over, including any security codes or passcodes that you have attached. So, if you have the Ring doorbells, you need to make sure you hand over or transfer the ownership to the buyers once closed.
And here's the other thing is exactly, and that's a good point. So on Ring, make sure that sellers remove all of their account information and all that stuff, right? But on top of that, make sure your buyers go online and set up their account brand new. So that way, that particular access to that particular doorbell and on so forth is on theirs and nobody else's once they sign up for Ring and stuff like that. Solar panels.
Ketan, one more question. Sorry to stop. So right now I'm in a contract with on one house where the owner also have a small TV which interconnects everything, all the cameras, and he's going to keep that, or he will take it out. So
So
just
he has to keep, if it's like a if it's a CCTV, a closed circuit TV or whatever, that's specific just for that security system, then he should go ahead and just leave it there. And here's the other thing is it may not even work for his next house. I mean, unless he plans on just pulling all of that stuff out and excluding it, you know, and these are conversations you want to have with your sellers when the time comes. One more thing is solar panels. Keep in mind with solar panels, there's a lien against the property. You guys are aware of that, right? There's a lien against the property that has to be cleared before the seller can sell it. So rather than taking all the solar panels out, which costs a bundle, I would not even mess with that. The problem is, right, the benefit goes to the buyers. The sellers have basically paid for it, for a duration of it. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of solar panels. I just can't see the value of it other than just that environmentally friendly version for it. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think the biggest challenge is you get a benefit up front, you get the tax benefits and all that stuff. They cost $20,000, $30,000, right? Easily. And you're paying it over the course of, whether it's 10 years or 20 years or whatnot. But if you sell that, and keep in mind, most people keep their homes for 5 years, which means you're never, somebody else is going to benefit. There's going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 owners that will benefit for that solar panel. The other thing is, are you going to get the money back for it? It's hard to say. It's really, really hard to say. So just one more thing to think about on the solar panels. Let me see one more thing. All right, Amit, did you have a question, or we're ready to move on? All right.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The question is, like, let's say we, in MLS listing, we actually exclude things, which is in a gray area. We are not sure. But then in offer and contract we signed, we forgot to check that as a listing agent, if it's not there by buyer agent. So there is a conflict there. What trumps it?
Yeah, so you negotiated out. That's that $10,000 screen where, my buyer's got another additional $2,000 for it. Right. And the thing is that the listing agent actually ended up reducing her commission by that $2,000 because, it was one that she just completely forgot, and she took the fall for it. So that's where it goes back to just making sure that, don't rush your contracts, and make sure that whatever exclusions are there have been listed. The best and easiest way is just to remove those things. Okay. So, at that point, you might have to take matters in your own hands. We don't want you to do that, but it's completely up to you how you want to handle it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Just wanted to make sure which, so basically listing agent has responsibility to put it in MLS as well as in the contract.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, she could have been responsible. I mean, he or she could easily have been responsible for that $10,000 screen, but and I've known, I know she's a very good listing agent. She does a lot of volume, and when I remember when she called, she goes, I just missed it. What do you guys want to do? And my buyers were completely okay with it. They're like, what, just whatever you want to work out. So luckily for us, it worked out. If I had a buyer that was adamant about keeping it, who knows what happened at that point. Okay. Any other questions on this one before?
Ketan, I had a question about if there is a tenant already staying and we are listing the home. Could you just highlight some more points on that part?
No, hang on. So, Sheetal, say that one more time.
I'm trying to list a home and there's a tenant already staying there for a year more.
Okay.
So I'm going to plan, of course, we will put it on MLS and stuff, but is there anything else you want to add to that?
Okay, so now actually, you know what? We're going to make that a discussion point if that's okay with everybody else. All right, so let's start with this. So Sheetal, I'm going to ask you first. Give me some of the pointers of what you would do in this case. So you know it's going to be a lease. How would you start off? Tell me what you would do. Let's go with that.
So in the MLS, I will be putting in that, it'll be a lease back until next April 2022.
Yeah.
And
And that's a good way to do it, but there's a different way of doing it and that's good. That's a good point. So you are going to put that there's a lease back until April of 2022. That's perfect. I was going to say the other way is just saying outstanding investor lease, until, next year, right? That's one thing. What else would we do on this one?
But lender allow that? Because I thought lender don't allow.
Yep. So how many days does a lender allow according to the deed? How many days can a lender allow the lease to stay effective? Does anybody know?
I think 90 days.
Yeah, close. I got to mute somebody, but I don't know who it is. Does anybody see where that one's coming from? You guys see it? Okay. Sorry, guys. All right. So it's not 90 days. It's actually 60 days. Okay. So what that means is that the lender has an issue with anything beyond 60 days. The funny thing is, you guys know that the short-term leases that we have, which is what we call the seller's temporary lease and so forth. How many days does that go for? Does anybody know? Or how many days can you use it up until? Anybody know what I'm talking about?
90 days, right?
Very good. It's not. So what's interesting is that form is 90 days, whereas the lenders only allows for 60 days. And there's a little bit of a discrepancy, but it is what it is. So good. So now we talked about, in that case, who can actually buy that house? Technically, another what?
Investor.
Yep,
Investor.
exactly. Another investor is really the only option you have, unless a owner occupant's going to buy it under cash, right? If they're financing it, it's going to be really hard to get a financing. But yeah, unless they're buying it under cash. All right, Sheetal, what else we got? What about key box access? How are we going to do that? What are you going to do for key box?
Authorization needed for.
Yep, very good. You need a key box authorization. This is where you definitely want to have a conversation with the tenants and explain to them that, hey, you know what, you're going to get showings literally, 2-3 times a day, or maybe at least 5-6 times a week. And so make sure they understand that piece of it as well. Okay. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? So we talked about key box. We talked about the outstanding. And nowadays, the great thing is that in the contracts themselves, you actually have to stipulate that there's an outstanding lease. So it's a lot easier than what it used to be 4 months ago, where there was nothing in place to provide lease information. Now you actually have to.
Ketan, when we have to go for taking pictures and everything, so we'll have to first contact the tenants before everything.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing, right? So the challenge here is one more, is are you violating the rights of the tenants because of their content in that house? Right?
Right.
Does that make sense? Right? So here's what I would do, is 2 ways of doing this. And this is one, now we're getting into so much legal stuff that just even trying to answer that correctly, I don't know what would happen. So we're not going to answer that. But here's the other thing is, if that's a property that you guys or somebody else had listed, or the sellers have vacant pictures of it in the past, that's one way of doing it. There is one more way of handling it up. And I'm going to tell you, so new TREC amendment regarding residential leases. I'm gonna have you speak about that in a minute. But here's one thing you can do. And I just did a virtual staging for a house that we're putting on the market. The virtual stagers nowadays will remove existing furniture and put in, virtual staging furniture. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
it's $25 per picture or $30 a picture. But now it might be a little bit more when you start doing that, but you don't need more than 4 or 5 pictures that way, or you might need 6 or 7 pictures that way. But that's another option that, in fact, I mean, you know, when I was looking up virtual stagers, I saw that on one of the virtual stagers doing that, and I was like, you know what, that's perfect. And I just thought about that. It's a great idea to have, you know, if you have existing pictures, or if you have pictures where you need to remove furniture and put in some, you know, standard furniture. Rachel, I'm going to step away for a second. So I'm going to have you talk about that, what you just mentioned, if that's cool. The right of quiet enjoyment.
Oh, yeah. So one thing to consider if you are listing a house that has an active lease is yours or the landlord's relationship with those tenants. Because if you want to make the property available for showings, those tenants need to allow those showings to occur. And of course, it's written, if you used a TXR lease, it's written in there that, you know, the tenants must allow showings, but when a landlord lists the property for sale by a brokerage. But the reality of that is not all tenants will cooperate. So yes, get that key box authorization in place, have a conversation with the landlord and also with the tenants about showing schedules or availability. So that way you can minimize you can set up a schedule that works for everyone involved. So people you can have the property on showing. You could use showing time to help coordinate those showing requests. That way either the tenant can approve or reject them. I've seen a lot of cases where since residents are working from home, they'll allow the showing, but they want to be undisturbed in one of the rooms while they're working in the study or the office or whatnot. So just try to work out a situation that will work for everyone involved, because yeah, at the end of the day, it's your landlord or the owner's property and it's their right to sell it. But we also don't want to be a nuisance to the tenants because they still have possession of that property. And it's written in their lease that they do have a right to live there peacefully. But we just want to make sure we work out a schedule or a deal that's fair to everyone involved. So you can do your job in selling the property. The tenants can accommodate the requests or the showings as much as they can. And then Trek created a new amendment or addendum to the residential contract. It's called the addendum regarding residential leases. This is new. So if you do have an active lease on the property and you're selling it, this needs to be included along with all your other important documents when you go to list a property. Meaning if you have an active lease, the seller needs to disclose whether if it's been terminated, whether the lease will be assigned to the buyer, and also whether or not the copy of the lease will be has been sent to the buyer or not. I put it in the chat what the title is. It is a Trek promulgated form, and it will be an addendum to the contract. It's written out very well that you mark off the boxes that are appropriate. Make sure if you have any questions or if any terms of the lease change with the tenants, any changes that may occur within the lease, they're communicated to the buyer if you're already under contract as well. But we'll save any other questions about this. If you have any questions, just reach out to either one of us, but it's fairly straightforward. I find it's best when you're preparing your listing, have the sellers fill out and complete this and then attach it to the listing doc in addition to the survey and the seller's disclosure.
It's very good. Actually, it's a very good point, Rachel. Couple of more things to that. Now, keep in mind one more thing. The easiest, I know a lot of landlords today want to try to list it while it's still leased out. Honestly, the best way to do it, and we've been doing this with all of our tenants on the property management side, is we're just giving them a 30-day notice or 60-day notice to vacate and saying, hey, especially if you're on month to month, don't go into a second lease, don't go into a lease extension. And explain that to your landlord, saying, hey, you know what, to make things so much easier on all parties, let's just go ahead and, have the tenants move out. And especially in today's market, it just makes more sense. The other thing you have to worry about is COVID as well, right? So, occupancy, COVID restrictions, things like that. So just kind of be aware of the best way to handle this going forward. There was one more thing. I'm trying to remember what additional thing we wanted to discuss on the leases. Oh yeah, so one more final thing. If it's a lot of landlords, or especially investors, if they have a portfolio of homes, what they will do is or the listing itself, the MLS listing itself says, landlord or the owner will only, or listing agent will only show the property once you are under contract. Okay, I haven't seen that as much over the past few months, but that is another way of doing it, where you're not showing the home until somebody actually submits an offer. And then, yeah, they might, at that point, back then, the option fees were maybe 100 to
Hello?
Ketan, I think we lost you.
Yeah, we lost him. That was unfortunate because I really wanted to know what he was talking about. No, it's not just you, Darshna.
Yeah, I figured.
I thought it was me
One
too,
other-
and then Ketan went away.
Another way I have done it is I had an open house just for one day. I worked out with
Yeah.
my tenant, and
That
we
works.
just had one day. Yeah. And in this market, I still had 17, 18 offers after one day
Awesome.
open house. So that worked out well. But I agree. I mean, the best scenario would be, because the house wasn't really presentable. Of course, it was the market which
Mhm.
actually helped to sell the property. But I thought that if it was more clean, less clutter, it would have been much better to show to the prospect.
Yeah. Did you have good showings? Good presence at the open house that you did?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, especially in this market where you listed on that first weekend and you're getting so much activity. It's
Yeah.
definitely worth it to just consolidate to 1 or 2 days during specific hours. Even if your homes are owner occupied, because
True. Yeah.
yeah,
And especially
like-
for the investment property and all that, people don't even wait for actually right now I have put offer for coming soon house. They're accepting it for the client.
oh wow,
So yeah, and the funny thing, Rachel, is, and I'm just chatting right now because we are waiting for Ketan.
yeah,
I asked because a lot of information was missing from the listing. I asked the agent, and she's like, "If you have access to MLS, we had this house on sale 3 years ago. Check all those information there." I was, wow, the agents are busy nowadays.
Sorry, guys.
yeah,
can
but
you-
a lot can change in 3 years. We had that big storm in
Exactly.
February,
Yeah.
and who knows if the sellers did any repairs to the pipes or the plumbing system. They should have just 3 years is definitely a long time. So I wouldn't
Exactly.
necessarily trust everything from 3 years ago.
And yeah, and I don't want to trust 3 years ago whatever they put. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do
Funny.
want to add one thing for Sheetal, that what I've seen happening nowadays is if you have a tenant,
Right.
then make sure that sometime buyers would ask a proof that tenant is paying. So you might want to show it because of the COVID situation, some tenants are not paying and people are not doing evictions.
Yeah.
So you don't want to take over a trouble from someone else.
Yeah, like the
Right.
rent roll report, if you're keeping track of that, just disclosing that is definitely useful, especially for investors, because they want to have all that information up front and readily available. So that's definitely a positive thing you can do. And it doesn't take much effort, especially if you have a written log of when money is received and how much was paid.
Right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Yeah, because I have a couple of properties to list with
Yeah.
tenants. So that's the
So,
I came up with.
Sheetal, hey, Sheetal, so quick, sorry, I actually lost connectivity, so probably missed a few minutes there. But one more question, Sheetal, is have you already listed it or are you getting ready to list it?
No, I haven't listed it. Um, we are in the process of negotiation, so I haven't even signed the listing agreement still. I think the first step is to sign the listing agreement, right?
Correct. But
Yes.
more than that is your landlord and or seller just adamant about having the lease in place? And what's the price range of the property?
Sure, Ketan, I'll just discuss with you once I,
Okay.
get some more details. It
Yep.
was just last 2 days of conversation, but he brought up saying that he has tenants in all the properties.
Okay.
So that's the reason I just brought it up in our discussion for the listing.
Yeah.
But
so
thank you so much. And I will, once I get a little bit more information, I'll definitely share and ask your opinions on.
Sure. No, that works. Let's do that. That's a good point. All right. As far as this is just a listing agreement for the leases, make sure again, always have your IABS, and have the exclusive listing to lease or exclusive right to lease. Both of those documents have to be in your file or obviously within back agent. One of the things that we've stressed over and over again, and luckily we haven't had this issue happen. It did happen about 3 years ago, where somebody had put a house on the market without having an agreement. Okay, so the most important thing is, unless it's your own house, make sure that you have a listing agreement in place, whether it's a lease listing or a sale listing. But the signed and executed lease listing and the IABS you have to have. We're not going to go over the lease listing package or the sale listing package. Both of those are in the Dropbox. They're also now in back agent, so you can always go through it. One of the other things that I do, and I know Rachel's been doing it, and a lot of the other agents I've started to see do this as well, is we have right now it's called Cannon Realty Group, the tenant selection criteria. We actually have the tenant selection criteria, so it doesn't hurt to go ahead and upload that into your MLS. So that way there's no confusion for anybody that's looking at, one of your lease properties as far as, what is the minimum selection criteria that we have out there. Another important thing that we want to discuss, or we can just briefly discuss, is keep in mind that when you have emotional support animals or assistance animals, you cannot collect a security deposit, a pet deposit for those, nor can you collect an additional pet fee or increase the rent. Okay, that's technically a violation of fair housing and the HUD regulations, I believe. So just make sure that is understood by your landlords as well. All right, let's see. This is the sale listing agreement information. 4 documents you really need to have, or 3 that you have to have when you go through the listing package, right? One is the IABS. Second is, of course, the listing agreement itself. And then the third is the seller's disclosure. Make sure there's 2 ways of the way I do it, and if you've seen the listing package email that I send out, it's also in our back agent and Dropbox. Go through that listing package email. It not only goes through a summary of the documents that you're signing, but then it also goes into customary costs that the seller is responsible for. An interesting situation, we had one just recently. Same thing, the title company had charged them $450 for the escrow. They had charged them $150 for the legal, the attorney review docs, and $120 for the deed recording or whatever, right? So, they weren't, as the sellers, they were not aware of it. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, why am I paying? I thought the buyer was paying for all the closing costs. So you have to be able to explain to the sellers that, hey, there's certain costs that are on the buyer side, and there's certain costs that are on the seller side. That's just customary. So make sure wherever you can, and this is for your knowledge as well, that listing package email that I send out, and we'll send it out again one more time after these classes, that listing package email, you got to go through it. You got to go through all the documents. There's steps in doing a listing. There's the listing package email. There is a lot of information that's in there, including, closing costs. And, what I do is I outline, commission to the buyer's agent because it's 3%. And then I outline the commission to us, whether it's a flat fee or 1% or whatever. Then I also include, if there's a transaction fee that I'm making the sellers pay 375 or 175 or whatever it is. I've included that. And I also include the photography fee. So I line item everything. Let me see if I can share with that, because that may be, it's already 6:18. So that may be our ending portion to this, but let me see if I can show you guys the listing package email. Okay. So here we go. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, do you mind just
Yep.
sending it today again as well, Ketan, if you don't
Yeah,
mind?
I don't mind. No. So I'll send it to everybody one more time. Actually, I cleaned it up a little bit. So here's the email itself, right? So this, what you're going to do is you're just going to copy and paste all of this in there. And keep in mind, this is just very generic. What I would like for you guys to do is take this and, enhance it to your needs. You may be a lot more detail oriented to the point where you're going to take this, make it even better. That's exactly what we're looking for. So if you notice, these X's are for the dollar signs for the price points, and then here's a little bit of information on the listing package and so forth, what you're going to be signing. And I think this one's a little bit older actually, because even on the seller's disclosure nowadays, I even tell them, please make sure to fill it out accurately, legibly, and truthfully, right? So those are the things you want to make sure. T47, how to fill that out. The property survey, if they have that. Signatures and initials. If there's a co-owner, husband, wife, or spouse, or another co-signer, make sure that I get their email address so I can go ahead and send them that information as well. Here's the summary of fees that we charged. Okay. Now this can change. And remember, this is all negotiable, so you can keep it to whatever you want. Here's my 3% to the buyer's agent, 1% to the listing office, 3%, $375 for the transaction, and $100 for the photography. Now these are probably about 2 years old, but again, here's this email with the details of it, right? Here's the 3% commission to the buyer's agent, the transaction fee, the photography fee. I even say, okay, for a $300,000 house, this is what it's going to cost you. Okay. So what's interesting is with my seller, what had happened was that, he reached out to the title company saying, hey, I'm not supposed to pay any of these fees, So I kind of had to explain that. Go back to the email that I sent when we first listed the property, review that one more time. If you have any questions, let me know. But in there, it tells you that there are certain costs that are paid by the buyers and there's certain costs paid by the sellers. And that's kind of how that works. Let me see if I can send you the most recent version, or let me just clean up the most recent version and send that over to you guys. And I'll just send over the listing package. So that way I don't push too much stuff back onto you guys. Here's one that we're just doing. And so you can see exactly.
Ketan, I had a question about
Yeah,
the commission. Can we decide for the buyer's agent like 2.5 or something if the seller says that?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, absolutely. So when you're in the listing agreement itself, there's a section where it says cooperating broker MLS fees or whatever. So in there, instead of 3%, you can change it back down to 2.5%.
Okay.
Or 2.75. In fact, Rachel and I were talking about, actually, I talked about it. She hasn't responded back on it, but we were talking about that on one of our listings right now, to see, and it's perfectly okay, because the fact that we're doing a lot more work, and it's becoming a little bit of a trend, it's a trend in the sense that you see it more and more where buyer agent commission, the BAC in the MLS is maybe 2.5, 2.75. So yeah, you can definitely negotiate that. And you can, as long as you're transparent with your sellers. Yeah, that's the most important thing. All right, guys, I do have a hard stop, unfortunately, unless you guys, or unless Rachel has something she can continue going with. Let me see. Yeah, so we got showing ready.
I have a hard stop to get done.
No worries. Let me just see where we are as far as, can you guys see where we are? Okay, so we talked about the listing agreement and we got the showing ready. We got showings and list reports. So we're going to go through that. We got MLS input, and I knew this was going to be a extended meeting or call because of the fact that there's just a lot of details we got to go through to do this, right? So hopefully I'll refine it, and maybe next time around we'll just do a 2-hour session. There looks like there is some other stuff that we are going to go, and then on top of that we do have Q&A that I want to go over on this after we finish the class. All right, so a couple of options. I know I had one asking about doing a back agent training. We're trying to get to the once a week training. Today's Wednesday. I can do Monday. Let me see. We might continue this and just finish it up on Monday. If that's the case, then I'll go ahead and push the new agent orientation to the week after we get back from vacation. If that's okay with everybody, or unless you absolutely need to do a new agent orientation or need some assistance on it, I think most of the folks that are on this call have been through the new agent orientation, it looks like. So yeah, let's just do that for now, is to go ahead and just plan on finishing this up, and we should be done by Monday. So believe it or not, it took 3 sessions instead of 2. Are you guys good with that? Hopefully. So hopefully
Yes,
that's
Ketan. Yeah.
all right. So Monday we'll do the we'll just wrap this one up. By Monday it should be about 45 minutes, and I think we should be done. But I'm kind of hoping that we've done enough of this through the last 2 days, and then obviously by Monday, to where you guys should have a really, really good understanding of it. I will send out the listing package email here shortly, or actually later on tonight. I'll send that over to you guys. All right. We'll see you guys Monday. If that's
Yes.
okay. Get you guys ready for dinner.
Yes, sure.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ketan.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.